when you're saying, well, I just don't believe that there's 10 million encounters at the border. This was on paper. If you look at the stats here, it was 10 million encounters.
Well, it's not that I don't believe that there weren't 10 million. I just don't believe it was that big of a problem.
Yeah, but you don't think 10 million encounters at the border was a big issue, Destiny, during that time? Like, you don't find that to be a problem at all?
I think that if there is a very substantial problem, then I think that you would have jumped at, not you personally, but I think people would have jumped at the bit to actually fix it. And the fact that people were content to completely nuke any legislation.
Yeah, but that bill came in 2024. Why didn't they propose it and like right when Biden took office, when he had the House and the Senate, if they were so concerned about the border?
If I said that I was like dying of dehydration at 2 p.m. and somebody didn't show up with water until 6 p.m. and then I said I was going to wait until the next day for the Kool-Aid,
yeah,
I feel
but
like I'm probably
whose fault was it that didn't give you the water in the first place, right?
It's not about whose fault it is.
Well, it kind of is, though.
Well, the question was, how strong is the claim? Is it a really big problem?
It is a really big problem,
If we can push it off
yes.
for like 6 more months, seems like it's not that big of a problem, no?
Well, if you could push it off for another 6 months, the thing is that once they did that border bill, I would say, was there anything in that bill that was going to deter illegal immigrants at the border?
Yes.
What was it?
So one, it would have given what was eventually done through executive order, depending on the legality of that. I guess I don't know where the challenges are to that. It would have given an official cap for shutting down the border if too many people had come in.
What's too many people?
I think it was if the average was like 5,000 over a 1 week period. If it exceeded that, then the government had the ability to legally just shut down all asylum.
So then they definitely would have shut it down, especially on average 200,000 illegal immigrants coming to the border, right?
Yeah.
So okay,
but why didn't that bill was blocked?
But at the same time, Trump was able to get that done without any type of bill.
Trump was able to get a lot of stuff done,
hold on, but why didn't Joe Biden get it done without a bill then?
Because it's better to do stuff legislatively than it is through executive order.
So then you're telling me that
hold on, real quick. Do you understand that it's hard to believe that it's a real problem?
I totally understand that it's better.
Legislation.
Of course, it's better to do it through a bill.
But if they shut down the legislation, how can I believe there's a real problem?
Yeah, but however, a real problem. 10 million illegal immigrants encounters at the border. That's a problem, right? You would agree with that?
Is it? If it is, why did they shut down the bill?
Well, again, they shut down the bill probably because based off what you were saying that they're going to run off of that. In this case, it's talking
when
politics.
You say going to run off,
but even Democrats,
right?
Democrats agreed that this was an issue. Kamala Harris even agreed this was an issue.
We're not talking
like
about
I know you're saying you don't care about it, but however, Democrats did.
That's not. So whether or not
no, it is. Would you agree that Democrats did find this to be an issue? Yes or no?
An issue is not what the Republicans sold it as. They sold it as a massive issue, an important issue.
Yeah.
And I'm asking, how can something be an important issue if there's legislation that would address it in like 4 different ways, and Republicans are like, let's go ahead and shelve this for 6 months until we win the election? Seems like it's not an important issue.
Because at the same time, if they're running off of this, of course, they brought it in 2024, right? Why didn't they do it in 2021 or 2020 when they had the House and the Senate, if this was so important to the Democrats as well?
Why didn't Trump pass legislation for it in 2019 or 2020?
Because again, we had the crisis at the border.
In 2021, we had another huge crisis. I don't remember, but there was like COVID, right? And then there was all of the fallout related to that. Immigration was not at the front of people's minds. Yeah. We had things like inflation that we were worried about. We had all of our huge supply chain disruption.
Okay, so I don't want excuses. I want results here. Again, Joe Biden.
Results? I'm sorry, wait. What legislation has Trump gotten passed in any of his 5 years now in office related to the border?
Related to the border?
Nothing. So you don't care about results.
Hold on, we're talking, but again,
it's virtue signaling right now.
How's he virtue signaling?
Because there's nothing but virtue signal to.
At the same time, when he mitigated the borders completely down 99% when it comes to the encounter rates, he did that to executive order. Why couldn't Biden do the same thing? Hold on, why couldn't Biden do the same thing if you're complaining about a border bill that they offered in 2024 when they could have done it in 2020 or 2021?
Because typically Democrats don't like to rule via executive order the same way that Donald Trump does.
Okay, so they don't like to use executive orders, is what you're
saying,
in order to fix a problem that was already there during the Biden administration, right?
The same way that Trump does, correct.
Okay, Destiny.
Do you recognize that it's probably better to have like legislation and powers from Congress to regulate the border rather than doing what Donald Trump does, which is to declare a national emergency in every single part of the world in order to get his agenda passed, I say, but in order to rule by executive fiat. That's not good. The fact that we're doing unilateral tariff policy from the executive office, the fact that we're doing all of our border policy from the office by declaring emergencies, like, I'm curious, do you think there's a national emergency with fentanyl coming in from Canada?
Yeah, well, of course it's a national emergency when it comes to the southern border.
Canada?
Well, fentanyl in general, yes, it is.
It's not about it in general. Is there a national emergency from fentanyl coming in from Canada?
Yes, it is, Destiny, but really quick.
You're a Canadian drug dealer. Where is Pangburn?
So really quick.
How much fentanyl did you make this
I am the Canadian drug dealer.
Okay. Anyways, the point is that I'm trying to make, though, Destiny. If you're saying, well, it's not a problem at all, but at the same time,
when did I say that? Did I say that?
You did say that.
I said it was not a massive problem, and that's evidenced by the fact that when there was legislation shut it down, the Republicans had no problem kicking to the curb for 6 months.
But that's not the case, Destiny. Again, yes, I would say that they were running off the bill. Could you get power and get Donald Trump in office and then fix the border with executive orders, especially when you want to do it the root cause, right? The root cause root cause would be encounters. Obviously, the more encounters you have, the more people are going to stay after the administration's over. Wouldn't you say?
So I'm curious.
Just
Wait,
like
happy?
Hold on.
Are you
I'll give you an
happy?
example. The numbers show this, Destiny. The numbers show this. Even with 10 million there, we had 50% of them stay within the United States interior after Joe Biden left office. So yes, that's an issue right there. At this point, we have 25 million unaccounted immigrants here.
What you're talking about is by design, though, right? If they came in and they have a receipt waiting to have their asylum claim adjudicated, of course they're going to stay
here. How many of
them
them were claiming asylum out of the 10 million?
That was the whole loophole for them getting in.
Dude, how many of them claimed asylum?
But my guess is the majority of them, it's like over 80-90% of the illegal people that came in did it. They say illegal, but it was by claiming asylum.
Okay, so you actually believe 90% of the 10 million people that were here were claiming asylum
seeker claims,
even though they traveled all the way over here, paying thousands of dollars to the cartels to get over here, and then they snuck in here illegally?
Are you claiming that they are illegitimate asylum claims, or are you claiming that they're not
illegitimately? Yes, of course, obviously.
Okay, how do you determine their legitimacy?
But how do you know they're legitimate?
You have a judge that adjudicates it. That's the whole point. But we don't have that system now. So you talk about the 10 million people that are here that are supposedly a huge issue. We have no way to work through that backlog because we didn't get additional judges. We didn't get additional funding. We didn't get additional resources. All things that were part of the original bill that would have been passed that the Republicans shut down. Instead, we got an executive order saying, oh, no more people coming through the border, which is fine. I guess it works for that. But do you think that by the end of these 4 years...
It solved the problem right there off the bat.
That's solving the problem. What about the people that are here?
Yes, when it comes to encounters at the border, yes, it solved the problem. We saw this through
That's not the only problem. You just said there are 10 million people here. Isn't that a problem? All the asylum seeker claims that came through here?
Well, 5 million under Joe Biden, right? He did deport 3 million, et cetera, and we have this. But at the same time, I'm saying that, yes, we now that we've shut down the border, which Trump is massively better on, you can acknowledge that, right, Destiny?
I don't even know what your goal. Do you think that anybody should
wait, hold on.
I don't know what your goal. When you say better,
are you denying the fact that we had 7,000 people encountered at the border in March compared to 200,000 on average under Joe Biden? Do you think that's better? Wouldn't you say that's better?
I wouldn't average Joe Biden because on the years it massively came down year after year because the massive spike was immediately after COVID.
In January it was 50,000. Is that still better?
In January of what year?
Of 2025, Biden's last month.
I would have to see the numbers because Donald Trump would have been president for 1/3 of the month on that anyway. So but the question is, if you already have 10 million here illegally, if you think that everything is fine now, if Donald Trump goes the next 4 years and he doesn't pass any legislation or do anything else at the border besides a single executive order saying, nobody's allowed to come in and claim asylum and all of that,
sure,
is that a success to you? That's good?
I would say that because we already have that issue already set in stone as far as the encounter rates here at the border, I would say we would start working on a bill in order to get that done on a permanent matter at least by the end of his administration. If he doesn't do that, I would say, yeah, that's a failure. But definitely the bigger failure here would still be Joe Biden.
Okay, I'm happy with that. We'll see that by the end of the 4 years. No, because they had a bill ready to go that Congress was ready to sign, that the president was ready to sign, and Donald Trump sent a DM to Ted Cruz, to the rest of the Republicans. They openly talked about it. They said, Donald Trump says that we shouldn't pass this bill. And then all of a sudden, the Republican Dream Bill that was authored by Langford, a Republican in the Senate that they were all happy with, all of a sudden, all of them said, well, Donald Trump doesn't want to go this way with things because Donald Trump doesn't want to go any way with anything. And all they want to do is sign an executive order to band-aid the issue at the border and not have any kind of comprehensive deal with anything with the people here right now or anything else.
This is obviously playing politics, right? You could say that, especially when it comes to
policies.
It's the same thing.
You play politics with issues that aren't that important. Politics. That's not that big of an issue then.
No, it is a big issue.
Clearly not. If they could kick
it
it down the road for 6 months, it's not that big of an issue.
And also on the fentanyl issue, it's less than 1% of the fentanyl seizures coming over the border into the U.S. is coming from Canada.